So we're almost to fall, the moment that the sun ingresses into Libra, almost to those fall months. And I want to do a video here about my top transits for the rest of 2022, a little bit of planning and preparation for the finish of this year. Perfect for Mercury retrograde. All right, I'm recording this just as Mercury has stationed. It's now moving retrograde, so we can plan and prepare. Let's dive in. What are the big moments that we can anticipate to finish this year? So welcome to the channel. We're settling in now to the fall months in the Northern Hemisphere. The days are getting shorter. We're always being pulled to those solstices, the summer solstice and the winter solstice. And now we're heading to that winter solstice. This year it's interesting because on that winter solstice, Jupiter will enter Aries. It will re-enter Aries and it won't look back. And of course, that's one of the transits I want to talk about in this video. But all I want to do here is list my 4 top transits, the 4 big ones that I'm thinking about and interested in, and just contextualize them a little bit and look at the charts. And this comes from a comment that was left on my channel 11 days ago, 12 days ago. Ignatius B said, "Can you do a video on what we can expect for the rest of 2022? I said, yes, that's a great idea. Thanks for the suggestion. And it is a great idea. I always like planning, out a few months at a time. It's always worth doing that. That's the beauty of astrology. It can show us where these climax points or inflection points are on the horizon. Here they are, the Libra stellium with the Venus cazimi. Let's just start there. That's my first transit that I want to very much dive into. And here are the dates. What is a cazimi? 3 or more traditional planets in a sign. That's my definition of a cazimi. And of course, I'm a whole sign house practitioner, so that would also be in a house, which is why cazimis are so important, because many of the other house topics refer back to the topic of that house. Sun enters Libra 23 September 2022. That Libra energy will begin building. We're only 13 days out from this moment. We have then this Mercury retrograde, where Mercury goes back into Virgo on the same day that the Sun enters Libra. So they kind of cross each other. The cazimi is actually in Libra. It's before Mercury goes back into Virgo that cazimi is triggered. And so that 23rd is a day to pay special attention to, because the Libra story really kicks off then with the Sun-Mercury conjunction hitting on the 23rd. Then you have Venus coming into Libra on the 29th of September. Mercury will come back into Libra on the 11th of October, and then both the Sun and Venus leave and enter Scorpio on the same day. And then Mercury finally leaves Libra on the 29th of October. So let's get a chart up. I want to start here with this chart, which is around the 13th of October. You see Mercury has re-entered Libra. The great thing about this stellium, and this is why it's on my list as one of the top transits to anticipate, I think it's the best astrology of the rest of the year, particularly because the cardinal signs contain both benefic planets, Venus and Jupiter. And they're averse to Saturn and Mars, but in particular, this Libra stellium gets a trine from Saturn and a trine from Mars. And so it's not only that those malefics aren't harming, they're actually maybe supportive here in mid-October. But this is the stellium where you may want to think about benefic offerings of Libra and of Venus, relationships, beauty, sharing ideas with loved ones, planning events around beauty that may be more agreement-oriented. Wedding season, right? These are the wedding elections that I would be looking at if I was going to try to elect a wedding this fall, which even this waning Virgo moon is quite interesting. I like that Mercury is so close to Venus during this waning Virgo moon moment. Mercury does well in Libra as well. It's a night triplicity ruler. Venus is the domicile ruler. While the Sun might be fallen, I think this time is for enjoyment, where maybe we're less centered on our needs and our desires and more interested in those around us and celebrating them. And then that's the other point to note here. This is the last part of the lunation cycle before an eclipse season. This stellium actually completes in a really profound solar eclipse in Scorpio, only the second eclipse we've had in Scorpio during the nodal transit there, the south nodal transit there. While you have this Libra stellium, as it wanes into the eclipse on the 25th, that would be some of the sweet pockets of energy. And it's, I think, the kind of thing where we'll have highs that week, and then we'll kind of have some intensities. I'm not going to say lows, but the eclipse intensities are going to welcome us quite fast after enjoying some of that good energy. So prepare for that. And of course, then it makes sense that the next big story for 2022 would be the eclipse season square Saturn. And here are the dates of those eclipses. It's that solar eclipse in Scorpio I was just mentioning, 25 October, right here at noon, roughly, in Central Europe. And then that lunar eclipse in Taurus, which happens on 8 November 2022, at noon in Central Europe, 6 a.m. in America, and that is election day, midterm elections in America, that second lunar eclipse. Election seasons are always crazy for American news and the American news cycle. And so to have these eclipses as we get closer, and then one on the day, it really does make me think we need to strap in for a wild political ride if that's something you follow. And if not, you'll probably be hearing it from friends. That's how crazy it may get. So here's a chart. I don't know if this is the exact moment of perfection, but it's basically the chart of the eclipse. Of course, Mars is stationing retrograde very soon after this, in between eclipses. And so maybe there's certain blocks that happen, or we should be a little hesitant to actually confirm or move forward fully, because, you know, Mars is in the degree of its retrograde station here during this eclipse. I've talked about this a few times on the channel. I mean, the major theme is that the idea of an eclipse sun, it really does block the solar power. You know, my sense with eclipses always is just to pray, meditate, submission to the divine, and sort of turn down life if possible. It feels a little bit rougher to me for relationships here, just symbolically, with Scorpio being ruled by Mars, Mars stationing retrograde, and Venus in exile in Scorpio. A little bit of a rougher energy in my view. Jupiter makes no aspect to this solar eclipse. This one is a rough one. I'm not going to talk too much about these, just break them down a little bit and we'll keep moving. And then in terms of this second eclipse, this is the one that is very closely square Saturn. The eclipsed moon will be applying to Saturn, and will be a mere 3 degrees away from the North Node. Another tendency to maybe go too far, want too many things, too much ambition in a way that maybe makes a moment unsettled. And you see this applying square to Mars. Again, that's why I said eclipse season square Mars, because even the first solar eclipse, it's quite early in Scorpio, but still by sign square Mars. This one is by degree square Mars. And this is why 2022, in my view, has been so harsh. And so it's another rough eclipse season. What I would encourage you to do is think back to April 30th and 14 May, when we had the last two eclipses also square Saturn in these same two signs. As I've been saying all year, there's a lot of continuity in the two eclipse seasons this year. And so I think you might want to look out for a return to the themes of what emerged for you during those first two eclipses and try to prepare for that. Go back to your notes or emails or DMs or whatever you do and think about that May, late April, first half of May time period. Because there's certainly a direct resonance and a return here in this chart. And you can see in this chart, look where Jupiter is. Jupiter, during the period between eclipses, will have gone back into Pisces, and Mars will have stationed retrograde. So two major shifts happen in between these eclipses, such that when we're done with eclipse season, so by the time we get to like the middle of November, it's a whole different energy because of the Jupiter story returning to Pisces and Mars now actually retrograde. So we should maybe be hunkered down here a little bit more than we are now with the Mars and Gemini story, really bracing for those reviews and for the look backs and the delays that this may indicate. And then I'll just point out again in this chart, the eclipsed moon ruled by Venus in Scorpio, and that Venus in Scorpio then ruled by Mars in Gemini. So we're very much playing the Mars and Gemini game with both of these eclipses, you know, fights and acrimony around ideas and communication. I've got 2 videos all about those energies. You can watch those for more. But my sense is that we maybe don't get as active and pause here during the retrograde. This is my advice in general. Try to just review, analyze, maintain, plan. That's what a Mars retrograde can be really good for, especially one in Gemini that's exchanging signs with Mercury. You can see here Mercury in that heart of the sun too, quite close here, a Mercury cazimi that I think is a little bit more auspicious in this case because the sun is not eclipsed in this chart. And so that strong Mercury, the first eclipse, it makes the trine to Mars, and in the second eclipse it's a cazimi Mercury ruled by Mars and an exchange of signs with Mars. So, what is Mercury? It's the planning that I go back to. Thinking, analyzing, planning is really the best use of these particular energies as we're getting and turning down, embracing for the eclipses to hit. Okay, now to the third story. Jupiter re-enters Pisces. I've already talked about it. Here it is. It's a short run for Jupiter in Pisces this fall, 28 October to 20 December, less than 2 months. Jupiter's final moments there. Remember, Jupiter was in Pisces May, June, July 2021. Jupiter was in Pisces in 2022. Winter solstice 2021 through the middle of May 2022. So the first 5 months of this year, 4 and some change months, were Jupiter in Pisces. We get another chance to revisit those themes. Think about what your life was like during that period in January, February, March, and into April in that Pisces sector. What were the changes, the truths, the revelations that you were grappling with, the dynamism? Remember, Pisces is a mutable sign. Jupiter is the truth that can come. We get another way to be with that energy. On the mundane level, both the Cuban Missile Crisis and the war in Ukraine that started earlier this year, I do think we get a return and maybe a second peak of climax, potentially, with Jupiter in Pisces, 28 October, 20 December. And so look for that, be aware of that. I'm thinking that we can hopefully win peace as well, because of that Crimean War, Treaty of Paris in the mid-19th century when Jupiter and Neptune met. This is that last bit of a Jupiter-Neptune co-presence that we'll get until the next cycle that has shown peace agreements can come. So I'm still holding out for that, for the war in Ukraine. So here we go. I've just thrown Neptune back on with this chart. A little messier, a little less clean, but there you can see that co-presence with Jupiter and Neptune that starts in between eclipses this season. And that's a major, major theme. This was the inflation transit. Maybe now inflation will finish out once the Jupiter Pisces, Neptune in Pisces story can complete here. The other major consideration, is this winter solstice moment. So the day before the winter solstice, 20 December, Jupiter will enter Aries. And this is the one I want you to get very excited about. It's a candidate for me for some of the best astrology of the rest of the year as well, because Jupiter's coming back into Aries now, full steam ahead. Will never return to Pisces, and it moves through Aries quite fast. It will leave Aries in May 2023. So everybody that was maybe anticipating Jupiter in Aries this year, and we got a big dose of it, this is a second chance to follow up on and continue with that Jupiter in Aries story for the first 5 months of 2023, starting here on the day before the winter solstice in 2022. All right, and then the final thing on my list is the Mars retrograde in Gemini. Major, major story of the rest of 2022. And it extends into 2023. And so you can see the dates here, Mars retrograde in Gemini. We've already started the story of this retrograde when Mars entered Gemini. It begins this Mars and Gemini story. And it's there 7 months. The retrograde station is 30 October in between eclipses, like I've said. Station direct 12 January 2023, and then Mars will leave Gemini on 25 March 2023. And I think by then, in March 2023, a lot of these stories will have come to a close and start being resolved. I'm not going to say too much more about the Mars retrograde in Gemini story in this video, because I've got 2 videos on the channel about it that are pretty recent that you can go to, and I've explored my ideas about how to engage this quite extensively here already. Okay, so just a quick video on my top 4 transits of the rest of 2022. I hope it helps you as you plan, and I hope you can enjoy and try to plan around some of this stuff and have a wonderful, wonderful rest of 2022. Excited for you, and hopefully it's a wonderful time making the best of it and enjoying life as best as we can in a very dynamic world that we're living in right now. Take care.